Hello, everyone. It is exactly 11 o'clock my time, but 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But I'm just going to give it a few more minutes. We have several people logging on. It is so good to see all of your, I guess I'm not seeing your faces yet, but seeing all your lovely names pop up. So as we kind of get a few more people logged on, we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully you guys are all having good weather. Poor Shelly messaged me this morning and she has a fourth of an inch of ice that is like actually on her window. She can't even see out her windows. And we had tornado warnings this morning, but thank goodness the weather has calmed down. So I actually have internet because I was a little worried about that for a moment, but looks like we're good to go. All right, guys. Well, we have several people on. So let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover today and a lot of amazing things to chat about. So hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cute Syndrome Foundation's third annual Meaningful Change series. My name is Kacie Craig, and I am the Executive Director of the Cute Syndrome Foundation and also mom to the amazing SCNAA warrior, Stella. For those of you who've not attended one of our Meaningful Change series events, today is the kickoff of a 6-part educational series. We will continue this series every Wednesday from 12 to 1 Eastern Standard Time for the next 5 weeks, which means our last session will be on May 10th. I also want to give a huge shout out to our 2 platinum sponsors, Praxis Precision Medicines and Neurocrine Biosciences. Without their support, we would not be able to continue the series. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. This year's theme is From Surviving to Thriving. This theme really hits home for me, as I imagine it does for you too. Many times we feel we are merely surviving each day between all the therapy appointments, the doctor's visits, the illnesses, the seizures, the medication doses, you name it. We run out of steam. And at times we feel we lose ourselves in the caregiving role. This series is aimed at providing ways to shift from not just surviving, but thriving and sneaking small bits of joy during even the darkest days. So this leads me right into our kickoff of our presentation today as we reveal the Connor James Smith Patient Assistant Grant. So Krista, if you want to go ahead and come on screen, and I'm going to pull up our presentation and we'll get started. So everyone, this is Krista Smith, and I am thrilled to have her on today as we get to announce this amazing grant of ours. And I'm trying to get my screen to work here. 1 second. And here we go.
And I'm excited to see everybody today. If you guys want to come on screen, if you want to put your cameras on, you're more than welcome to. I would love to see your faces because since losing Connor, I haven't seen many of you face to face, but also acknowledge that if you're comfortable having it off, that's great too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there for the wild. I just want to make sure we could get everything going. But now that we're up and running, feel free, hey Tammy, to jump on and let us see your faces. And you know, I do want to take a moment to pause here and just really like soak in this slide. Gosh, what a beautiful family that you have, Krista. And I also want to brag on our amazing graphic designer, Megan Varner. Yes, she knocked it out of the park with this graphic for our patient assistant grant. It represents, I feel like the picture of him smiling and your family and the superhero cape, it just represents everything about Connor and the joy and all the lovely things that he brought to our lives.
Absolutely. And I just got to see Liam, so I had to blow kisses and wave because I'm so happy to see him.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing him on screen. That just literally made my day.
Yeah.
We wanted to also acknowledge that while we're kind of sitting here on this slide, that we've recently lost a lot in our SCNAA community, and it doesn't feel very joyous in those moments of losing somebody in our community. It certainly didn't feel that way when we lost Connor, and all the children and other affected individuals that have passed away prior to our most recent ones. So if you guys just want to take a couple seconds pause here and let's just think about them for a moment, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the mission behind this grant. So the mission of this grant, it's to spread joy. As we've seen in our community, we aren't promised 3 days, 35 years or beyond. And we don't want to wait to find joy. We want to find it now and find it, as Kacie said, in some of those really small moments or in some of those really big opportunities as well. So today we're really excited to take you through this. Kacie's going to kind of kick us off and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. So as I think about the CUTE syndrome's mission, and it's essentially been very strong and set this foundation up for us to do these amazing things over the last almost 10 years, guys. In May, it's going to be 10 years since the CUTE Syndrome Foundation was started by Hilary Savoy. And we, of course, the very first, almost 10 years, the financial support of the CUTE syndrome really needed to be towards scientists and researchers to build that foundation of research. And so we can, get ourselves ready for clinical trials. And now that we have a clinical trial in progress, and we're going to hear from Praxis about theirs next week. And so now, we have this foundation, and it's a strong foundation. And so when I took over this role as executive director last year, I started thinking about what are some ways that we can financially support families. We've had a very big impact, I think, on families, their social and emotional, mental health, a support group that you can vent and talk about anything and everything. But when we get down to the financial aspect, what are some things that we can do to help families? And so we're going to shift a little bit. And one of the things that I had thought about whenever I took over the role was a patient assistant grant. And I had some ideas. I talked to other executive directors of foundations that have a similar program. And I started kind of getting the ball rolling of this is where I wanted to go, had conversations with our board of directors. And as I'm kind of in this building stage of seeing what this grant was all about, then of course, the Connors unfortunately lost Connor, or the Smiths lost Connor, and Krista contacted me. And it seems like a long time ago, kind of, but it actually wasn't. It was was it in February, or maybe even in January?
It was in January. It was like right after he passed. Yeah.
And Krista said, "Hey, I got this idea." And she starts talking about essentially a patient assistant grant. And it was just building on everything that I was wanting that grant to be. And as she's talking to me, I'm just smiling because Hilary had told me at the very beginning when I took over this role, she said, things just happen organically with this foundation. If it's meant to be, it will happen organically. And I thought, yep, this is it. The stars aligned and allowed us to work on this as a partnership. And it has just been an absolute honor, Krista, to be able to partner with you and Sean and just bring this grant to a whole new level. The legacy of Connor that we're going to continue and the things that we are going to be able to do with this grant, I'm just so excited and yet humbled at the same time.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It really has been a beautiful partnership. And I also want to thank everyone else that's been involved with Shelley and Danielle and Megan, all bringing in their expertise and their creative juices as well, because this all snowballed. We were just talking about this. It snowballed very quickly, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's beautiful from what it is visually when you're looking at it, and then it's beautiful in what it is going to do for this community. So really excited.
Yes. So are you ready to kind of jump in, Krista?
Yeah, let's
All
do
right.
it. So I got the easy part today. I get to talk about Connor and why this grant is coming, forward, and his legacy. And then Kacie gets to take you through logistics. So I like to say I got the easy part because talking about Connor for me is always easy and it's always joyful. And honestly, it's also, I think, a part of my grieving process to be able to talk about him, talk about his legacy, and see where it's going to go forward, and the joy that's going to spread. So I like to call this a promise made. And I like to think that throughout Connor's lifetime, we really made 2 promises to him. And so we'll kind of get to what those promises are. But Connor James Smith, he was Sean's and my 5-year wedding anniversary gift. He was born just 2 days after our anniversary on March 28th, 2010. So remember that number 28. He was the sweetest baby from the moment he was born. He was really calm and always very smiley. And really, honestly, the word we often use to describe him was angelic. Never knowing that at 12, he would be an angel. And I always say that he was the type B kid to really type A parents. And Sean would probably say I'm extra type A. We were both working parents, and Connor spent the workday with fantastic, loving caregivers who really honestly took him on as their own child or grandchild. And they absolutely loved on him and were equally, I think, as devastated and grieving in the same manner that Sean and I are. And those first 6 years he spent in the preschool setting, and he spent it with other typical kids, neurotypical kids, which was really just an exciting environment for him to be in, and that inclusivity and what that really created. And I loved that for him. And then after 6 years, he went with his personal care attendant and started doing homebound instruction, and he did structured therapy days. And so his world kind of changed because we really needed to protect his immune system and really help him in that way. But he had these really loving relationships, and we got to see so much joy through that. And then I had a blessing of my own, which is that during the pandemic, my company sent us to work remote. And I got 3 years seeing Connor's day. Not every moment of the day, because of course I was working, but I could sneak down at lunchtime and see him. And then I could sneak down in the middle of the day and see him doing his standard time, or right before he was about to go into class, could give him what we called smoochies and give him a little smooch. And I will tell you, I will be grateful for those days until I take my last breath, because they were beautiful, beautiful years. And I also got to really see how hard he worked on those bad days. Being one of the more severely affected SCN8A children, he had the L1630P de novo mutation. He, for a long time, was the only one. And then another child came into our community who also shares that. And he had this amazing ability, like all of our children, to compensate. Quite frankly, I think he compensated so well that over time, we built up this idea of he was infallible and he was indestructible. And we would have to learn through that lesson and grieve through that. But he smiled in the toughest moments. He smiled during heel cord surgery. He smiled when he was intubated, recovering from respiratory illnesses. And he smiled eventually after his spinal fusion surgery. That one was pretty rough, I will say. But most days he just crinkle up his little nose, and he had all these little freckles that decorated his cheeks, and he just give you the most joyful smile. And then he could express himself through, I would say, vocalization. So while verbally you couldn't necessarily understand anything, you knew from his vocalization, was that happy? Was that sad? Was that really excited? And I will tell you, absolutely miss those vocalizations. But as being working parents and having a special needs child, we certainly understood stress. But Connor could somehow just bring joy from those stressful moments. And that started when he was 5 months old and he had his very first seizure. And then we understood that there would be challenges ahead. And at that time, you know, something that Sean and I made that was the right decision for our family and our family alone was that we would be one and done. And we told that to Connor. We said, we want all of our timing, all of our resources to go to you and whatever those needs and wants may be. And I think, you know, there was many times when we felt like we were just surviving, but then we could feed off of Connor's energy and we'd have just these really amazing moments, really joyful moments. And so, you know, God really, he blessed us all along the way. And that kind of leads us to another promise and really the final promise that we made to Connor. And so when he was in his final hours of his earthly life, we were asking God for his mercy, to give Connor his crown of righteousness and take him to heaven and not have him suffer anymore. And we made a promise to Connor that we would carry forth his legacy, his joy, his superhero spirit, and we would take that both to our local community by donating all of his equipment, everything we could think of that could benefit, that would be too big to put in a box and mail to somebody. And then we told him we would take the rainy day fund, that for those of us that are planners, those of us that think there might be a day when my child may have to go to a nursing home, or my child may have to survive without me. And what will that look like? And we told Connor we would take that fund and we would take it to his friends in the SA and 8A community. And we would use this to give Connor's friends this avenue to go find joy. And so then that really leads us into the next slide, which is, well, what does joy look like and what does this grant mean? And like I said, Kacie will take you through logistics here in a couple of slides, but I wanted to give you guys some ideas. And these are not inclusive. We are going to challenge you to think outside the box and think about ways that you can find joy for your families. But what is it that you need to thrive? What is it that you need and or want? I should put need here, but let's face it, it can be a want. A want makes absolute sense. And I put some just examples up here of Connor and his Wike. And so a Wike is actually a special needs accessible bike jogger, and they come in various sizes. And it was amazing for Connor. And I will tell you, I actually got really blessed in how I came upon this, and that I knew we were needing something for Connor. He was in a Bob stroller until he was like 7, which is far exceeding the weight and the height constraints on it. We had taken off the hood. His feet were hanging over the sides of those metal bars, and we had, you know, pool noodles on those metal bars trying to keep his legs comfortable. And it was finally time. And I started looking at the Wike and I thought, oh, this is so expensive. This is really going to require some budgeting. Talked to Sean. We'd said, okay, we're gonna budget for it, and maybe in a few months we'll be ready to partake and procure it. And at that time, in a local Richmond, Virginia special needs moms group, somebody happened to be selling one, which is just mind blowing, right? It's like, hallelujah, this is what I'm looking for. Yeah. And not only that, but the fact that I happened to be on, you know, the post the minute she posted it and got first dibs to it, went and procured it for Connor. And I will tell you guys, we did so many trips with this. This got him down to the beach. It got him to parks. This first picture with it attached to the bike. This is something called High Bridge in Farmville, Virginia. And it is way up in the trees, as you can see there. And it's an amazing, you know, adventure for anybody to do, but let alone a child with special needs who can go across this massive bridge because they have this Wike jogger. So just an example here, but he never had to miss out on moments to be at the beach, to be at the park, to go on bike rides or spend time with his cousins. And this is an idea of how we have promised Connor that we're going to take this grant and we're going to fund things for your families that can be helpful. And this can be something fun like this, but it could also be something that you're fighting for. It could be something where you're in an emergency situation. You're like, I don't know how we're going to handle this. And I can give an example of that. I can tell you that there was a time where Connor's prior auth for his on fee, it had to be branded, and you always know you can only refill that 2 days in advance, or at least that was always our issue. And we got to that point, and all of a sudden we were having a prior auth issue, and you've got the neurologist office saying, hey, we put it through, and you got insurance saying it's not on our end, and you've got the pharmacy going, it's not on our end, and we have 3 fingers pointing in all different directions. And we had, right? It's so frustrating. And we're literally up against a weekend. Nobody's going to be working. You're not going to be able to call the doctor, not going to be able to get anybody with insurance. And we had, in those moments, had to make decisions. Are we going to go without on fee for the weekend? Or are we going to spend $2,000 out of pocket for this one bottle so that we don't miss a single dose and not find out what the consequence of that is? And those are really tough decisions to be in. And we've been there with you guys. I can think of another time when Connor turned 7. He actually had been getting Synagis pretty much all of his life up until 7. Even though generally I think insurances stop at 3, mine was going along with it. And then finally at 7, they said, no, we're not going to do it anymore. And we lost that avenue. And so these are some of the more, maybe you could say, critical things that this grant can help with, but I don't want to lose sight that it can do the things that also can give your family joy and moments of experiences. And so again, we're going to challenge you today to really think outside the box and how you use this grant. And it's global, and it is inclusive of everyone and everything. So it doesn't matter which end of the spectrum of SCN8A your child falls on. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. This is meant for everyone.
Yep, we will find a way. We were talking about that with international, applicants, and we absolutely will find a way. It might take us a little bit to figure it out, how we're going to work all of our magic, but we're going to find a way to help.
Yeah, absolutely. So this slide here, again, is to really highlight some areas that this grant might be really useful, but again, it's not inclusive of everything. And you're going to see that number 28, and we're going to come back to that. So this grant, like I said, it's meant for Connor's friends. It's meant for our SCN8A family, and it's meant to spread joy and be a blessing. I encourage each of you on this call, but also to spread the message, and we'll get to that again a little bit later, to think of something that you need or want to thrive, and then execute on it. Apply for something from this grant, and let's use this to take our families and move you forward into a moment of joy. Connor would want this, Sean wants this, I want this, Kacie wants this. There's a lot of us that really are partnered here together to do this. And so I'm in sales. And anybody in sales knows you got to have a call to action to close that deal. And my call to action is I want 28 applications, because March 28th is when Connor was born. December 28th is when Connor passed away, and 28 was his favorite number. He was able to tell us that through his Toby communication device, which you see here on the screen, where he wrote to mom, gave me a bunch of hearts, and then wrote his name in the right-hand corner. And he was a UVA Thursdays football hero one year, and they gave him a real UVA team jersey, and it had the number 28 on it. So this number being really significant to us in a lot of different ways. And I'm asking for 28 applications this year. Really think about anything. It could be the smallest of things like diapers, or it could be the biggest of things like my insurance company will only cover a portion of a remote hydraulic lift. Because a lot of times they want to give you the ones that are manual and require a whole lot of work. When you're dealing with a patient, like in Connor's case, who maybe is 90 pounds, that's not so easy, and you fight for the kind that you really actually need. But these are just examples. You know, it could be a kinder carry to take your child to the park or, you know, really anywhere. We actually used a kinder carry to take Connor into the Grand Canyon off of a helicopter ride. So the kinder carry was an amazing thing when he was smaller. And then as he got bigger, I mentioned that Bob stroller. And then as he got even bigger, it was the Wyke, but always trying to find what's that next thing that is really going to help your child thrive and your family member get some joyful moments. So with that, we can go to the next slide.
And I have to comment though, Connor's smile on that BiPAP machine is impressive because I can only slip that thing on Stella when she's asleep. Otherwise, she's like, no way, I do not want this on my face. So I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah, I think, you know, sometimes he was really good about it. And then sometimes it was a Herculean effort to keep that thing on him. Some of you know this, but not everybody knows either me, Connor, or our entire situation, but we co-slept Connor and I co-slept his entire life, mainly because my husband cannot wake up and go back to sleep. It's just, that's a big challenge for him. And you need to have restful parents. And I happen to be the type of person that can wake up, do something, go right back to sleep. So Connor and I just co-slept all of his life. And honestly, it was one of the biggest blessings. And I loved the fact that like, if he had a seizure, I could be right there and attend to him, put oxygen on him, or, you know, before he used BiPAP. And then once he had BiPAP, make sure he resumed breathing. But you know, there was many nights where it was a game of let me swat this thing off my face and put it back on. But I will tell you that is a great comment in the sense of, I know with my insurance company, they wouldn't do a BiPAP. Oh, Heather, I love that. They're little angels when you sleep next to them. But I know with my insurance company, they wouldn't replace his BiPAP mask, but every 6 months. Those things are gross.
Yes.
Like you should not have to go 6 months before you can replace that. And that was
not, and the sweat and all the things.
Yeah. The drooling. I mean, yes, like just so gross. And I mean, certainly we cleaned it out. We did all the things you're supposed to do, but that I think that's also a position where sometimes we're in a hard place thinking, well, do I limp this along to 6 months or do I spend money, and they're not cheap, and get a backup or get one that can sub in at 3 months until we can limp through to the next one that insurance covers. And so again, I challenge you to think of ways that this grant can really help you out. We can go to the next slide. So again, just some more examples. And quite frankly, I mean, I need to be honest here, just also opportunities to put my cute little boy in a lot of pictures. But Kacie and I, like so many of you, we've been fighting insurance. We've been budgeting for a lot of years. Honestly, I think it's one of our biggest skill sets, no matter who you are. If you're in this club, you learn these things and you get really good at them, but we don't want you to always be fighting and we don't always want you to be budgeting. So again, I encourage you to take the Connor James Smith Patient Assistance Grant, change your lives for the better, and honor Connor. And let's make our SANA Day life just a little bit better and a little bit easier. And let's do that starting today.
Yay. So shall we talk about the grant and what some more things that it could possibly cover and how to apply?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Okay. So when we looked at this grant, I was looking at other foundations and how much they capped per year. And to be honest with you, I didn't feel like it was high enough because sometimes $1,500 isn't enough to make a meaningful impact on the things that we need for our kids. And so I am going to kind of start this out with letting you guys know this is a progress year. This is a learning year. We're starting out with what we think is going to work. But once we get feedback from you guys, we might need to tweak this a little bit for next year or as we move forward throughout this year. And so essentially what we were looking at for this year is a $5,000 per patient per year, and then a $10,000 lifetime max. And we are asking right now that we just do one application per year to give everybody a chance to ask for something that they need. But if we have funds left over and we're needing more applicants, then we'll start, reaching out to people as well. But, with the caveat of depending on how much money we have, we might be able to do more. So it just kind of, again, this is a starting point. So like Krista said, this grant is for everyone. This is for every level of support that you might need. So you might have small asks, but they're going to still make that big impact on your family and on your child. So some of the small asks might be a bubble maker machine or a sensory LED bubble tube. I know those things are like $300, but they're really tall and they're super cool. And you can change the colors. It's great for your kids that have CBI. Maybe you need a light show projector for your kids' ceiling as they're falling asleep, or a Z-Vibe. I know Stella, she chews on her Z-Vibe so aggressively, and they're not cheap. Maybe your child's maybe more on the milder side of physically being affected by SCNAA. And so they love to jump, maybe a small trampoline or a play set. I even saw on eSpecial Needs a really cool zip line that you can have in your backyard, ball pits, all these fun things that maybe your child, or your affected family member would bring a little bit of joy into their life having. We could also look at funding diapers, wipes, G-tube supplies. I know our insurance company paid for Stella's G-tube to be placed. And then afterwards, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, it's like $1,000 a month for all the supplies, but we don't cover the supplies. And I was like, what? And so of course I didn't know this until after it was placed. But G-tube supplies, we could look at funding horseback riding, therapeutic horseback riding or hippotherapy. There's a little bit of a difference there, but both of those we would look at helping fund aquatic therapy. Insurance companies sometimes don't cover those types of things. Maybe there's specific therapy equipment or switch activated toys. Guys, how much are those things? I know there's this one particular bell toy that Stella loves at therapy that's switch activated. I looked it up to see how much it cost. It was over $300 for this toy. So of course, in our minds, as we're budgeting and we're looking at the things, we oftentimes have to be, well, is it this or that? I have to choose. I can't have both. We can't pay for diapers and a $300 switch activated toy. So of course you're going to have to pay for the diapers. So we don't want you to have to choose this or that. We want you to have both. And so that's another way that we can come in. Krista also talked about, the high copays on maybe branded seizure medication that you need. Your child does better on the brand name, but insurance companies sometimes won't pay for that, or it's $100 copay a month. Let's talk about that. Let's see how we can help you. We know certain formulas or blended diets insurance companies don't cover. I know we do a blended diet for purees because Stella can thankfully still eat by mouth with puree food. And so we had to have a special Vitamix blender, and that sucker's like $300 refurbished. So those are things that we could look at. There's also this dream big category. Maybe your insurance only covers a certain portion of a wheelchair or some type of special seating. I know our insurance company, if you have a wheelchair, you can't have another seating device. So like a Peapod chair, something like that wouldn't be covered by your insurance company. So maybe we could get you a Peapod chair for your child. I've seen a lot of people looking at these wonderful wagons. They look amazing. They have a very nice big price tag with it as well. So a lot of families aren't able to go ahead and say, yes, we're going to purchase one of those, but that is definitely something that we would consider. So that way your child could be in the wagon with all of their supplies and with maybe siblings all in the same place. So you guys can get outside, go to the park, or maybe this is just easier to transfer with hospital visits and things like that. I haven't been keeping a close eye on the chat. Is there anything that's popping up? I might have you take a look at it for me, Krista. Okay, good.
Yeah, Heather just said she gave a great idea. She was mentioning that some of the pool floats that she has for Tate can be really expensive. And she's right. We ended up buying One of the pictures we had of Connor like in the pool, but we ended up buying one. I probably very similar to what Heather's referencing, and they can be expensive. So again, a great opportunity to get your child in the pool. I know for Connor, as I mentioned, imagine many of our children, when they're in the pool, like their bodies just feel so amazing.
Yes, yes. I know there's a specific life jacket we've looked at getting for Stella too, that she could float in the pool or the lake. And again, it's multiple hundred of dollars. So yes, that is a great idea. I'm glad that you mentioned that. We can also look at, different lifts, ceiling transfer lifts, or maybe you need a special bed for your child to stay safe. Obviously the grant probably wouldn't cover a full amount, but if insurance is going to pay some, and then maybe you're finding other grant opportunities, we can supplement that too. Maybe a service dog, maybe that's something that you've been looking at. We're looking at the, covering $1,000 of a service animal that's been trained by, a reputable organization, things like that. We're also looking at helping out with bathroom modifications, or maybe you need a ramp inside your house, to get to your house from your garage. Maybe you need a vehicle that needs to be either modified in your current vehicle, or you need to buy purchase a van that is accessible for your child. Car seats, maybe it's a special needs car seat, maybe it's just one that swivels. So there's so many different things that we would entertain covering for this grant. So this is not an inclusive list whatsoever at all. And then I also want to jump in and talk a little bit about the emergency medical needs and burial costs. Unfortunately, we all know that SCNAA can be unexpected and throw us very many curveballs. And so for one of the examples, Krista talked about her on fee and how it's a Friday and they need this $2,000 bottle of on fee. And so in those types of situations, the emergency medical needs, and then obviously in burial costs, we don't want you guys to have to worry about, oh my gosh, I got to get on and fill out this application. Contact me directly. Okay. So whether that is by phone, Facebook, email, contact me and say, hey, this is my emergency need, or this is what we're needing. And we will talk through that process, and we're going to try to get you guys what you need. So can you think of anything else that maybe I missed on that, Krista?
I don't think so. I think the biggest takeaway here is we put a lot of thought into this list based off of what we know Stella needs and wants, what Connor needed and wanted. But this list is not conclusive. If you are thinking of something and it is, wildly outside the box, I challenge you to submit it to us. And one, you're going to help us refine this process. We're all really new to this, and we're really looking for those opportunities to figure out what's working and what isn't going to work. And what are some of these great ideas that maybe we haven't even thought of, like the Theraquatics pull float. What a fantastic idea. Certainly something we can kind of capture in our list too. So keep the communication lines open with us.
Yes. Also, when you guys go, we're going to share the website information. So we have all of this and the application on our website, and we have some more detailed options that kind of go in a little bit more detail on our website. So feel free to take a look there too. Also, again, we keep saying we want so many people to apply. We have a pretty good chunk of money that we are looking at here, guys. So whatever Krista and Sean are putting forward, the Cute Syndrome Foundation is double matching for this year, and then we will match from every year forward. So we have the funds. We want to help. So please help us spend the money.
Help us hit Connor's number 28.
Yes, exactly. So we've gotten to how to apply, and it is this part, I think, that we were very cognizant of trying to make it easy. We know the mounds of paperwork and all the things that you guys have to do on a daily basis to get your kids what they need. And so we didn't want this to be a huge, long process, or again, we didn't want it to be based on financial. We want this to be something that's easy, that you guys are able to fill out and tell us what you need so we can get it to you. So when you guys go to the website, and you can see Megan made us this amazing QR code, you're more than welcome to scan it right now. Otherwise, we will be sharing all of this in the support group after today's presentation. But it's going to take you to the website. It's going to talk all about the process of applying, and then it will have the application towards the end. The application is right on the website. You type it all in and it sends all your information to us. I also want to encourage you that those applications are actually HIPAA compliant, and all of your information will be kept safely, as it will go directly to Shelly and I as we sort through that information. And also I wanted to mention too that all of these application will be de-identified and sent to a blind committee. And so that those committee members will look at each application individually, and they will not know what family it is who's asking. And they're essentially just looking at what is the need? Can we cover it? Yes. And our hope is we can say yes to every single one of them. The last thing, one of the things that you will be asked during the application process is for a recent letter. And this letter we're hoping comes from either the physician or some type of healthcare professional. And I want to just hit on this because I don't want everyone to go, oh gosh, I have to get a letter. It does not have to be a super formal thing. It can actually even be an email from one of these providers that you screenshot and turn in with your application. It does need to be dated within the last 6 months. And the whole purpose of why we're looking for this letter, especially for those big items, maybe a particular therapy equipment, things like that, orthotics, is that we want to make sure that you're getting something that your child is for sure going to benefit from. Because we would hate for you to think, oh yeah, I think this is going to be great for them, and this is the size I need. But essentially a PT or OT would have been like, ooh, I think this size or this model would be better for your child and their needs. We just don't want you to end up with some equipment at home that you're not able to use. So that's one of the main reasons why we're asking for that letter. That healthcare professional could be a PT, OT, vision therapist, speech therapist, maybe your child's teacher, or a nurse, or again, a physician. So that those letters can definitely come from a myriad of different sources. And then one of the options that we'll ask for is a letter of denial from your insurance company. Now, there's a huge caveat on that, because some of these things that we've talked about, insurance no way will even begin to cover, and they're probably going to laugh at you if you even ask them for a letter of denial, right? So the things like the bubble makers and well, gosh, I'm trying to think of some other things.
Even a WIC, like
Yeah,
a
I'm
WIC
going to say
would
the
be.
WIC probably would not be covered. I know our insurance company wouldn't even look at the special needs bed that we needed for Stella. So in those types of cases, guys, you don't have to like kill yourself trying to get a denial letter. Just write in the explanation section of the application the reason why you don't have that letter. And if I need more information, I'll reach out to you directly and say, hey, I need this, this, and this, or can you explain this a little bit more? And again, all the documentation is going to be kept very safe and secure, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, one of the things I also wanted to hit on is the application period. So for budgetary reasons, we are opening it up every year on the SCNAA International Awareness Day, which is February 9th. And then we're essentially closing it on December 1st. Now, with that said, though, we understand that emergency type situations pop up. And so if it's outside that application period, feel free to contact me directly and say, hey, Kacie, I know it's after December 1st, but I really, really need this. And if that's the case, I will try to move mountains to make that happen for you. Okay. Now, if it's something that can easily wait, then we'll just roll it over to the next application period, or we'll have conversations about that. But again, please feel free to contact me if you have any questions about this, or if you feel like you're needing something that's not within that application period. All right. Can you think of anything else on this part?
I think the point here is you can apply anytime. If it just happens to be outside of the application period, we'll just roll you into the next one. But if it is absolutely an emergency, we lost Connor on December 28th. Had we needed funds for a burial, that would have been a great example of reaching out to Kacie and asking her for one of those emergency exceptions. So I encourage you to all think about how we can help you. And again, take some of those really panicky moments and put them aside and help you through them and just give you joy back.
Exactly. So less surviving and more thriving, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about this and how this is, we want to spread joy to the SCNA community. This was my hope. And then it was just compounded with bringing Krista on board in honor of Connor. And we want to help you. So help us help you by giving us some feedback. So applying for the grant, right? We want you to apply, but during the process, if you have any type of feedback at all for us, we are more than welcome to hear those things, whether it's this wasn't enough money, we needed more, or the process was clunky, or we need, this took too long. Please give us that input, because we will absolutely modify it and change it so the process fits what the community needs are.
Yeah. And so I'll hit the last two bullets here, but send in your application. So I'm going to start with you all on this call. Don't think, oh, I'm going to leave those funds there for somebody else to go and apply for that. I mean, she already told you double matching this year. So I highly encourage all of you to do it, and then to be influencers. So if you've ever said, hey, I really want to be a Kardashian, just kidding. But if you ever really wanted to influence, and you guys are great influencers, whether you're spreading knowledge, spreading expertise, you guys are fantastic. So apply, and then tell your friends, tell your SCNA Day friends about the Connor James Smith Patient Assistance Grant, because this can have joy for you, but it also can have joy for those that maybe aren't as social. And when I say that, I mean social media, right? Not connected into the social media world. Make sure you're letting anybody know as you're on some of these other calls, as you're maybe at some of these meet and greets. And I'm not going to steal Kacie's thunder from a future slide, but talk about it and share with them, and give them that really super easy QR code, because then they can go right to the site and apply. And we want to see everybody on this call be an influencer and be one of those first 28.
Yes, exactly. So I've been kind of keeping an eye on the chat. We have a few more slides that we're going to go over, but are there any questions that you guys have, or ideas of things that you are thinking, ooh, maybe this would be covered? So we do have, still 15 more minutes about to go over. So as you guys are thinking about those, please feel free to put them in the chat. All right. The last thing I wanted to just kind of touch on and remind everybody, and this kind of goes along, Krista, with all the amazing things that you did with Connor. Trying to be emotional here. You influenced my family to be able to have the confidence to take Stella on trips. I never would have had the confidence to take her to the beach. And I remember seeing pictures of all these amazing places that you took Connor. And I thought it was in 2020 that we were like, we're going to do this. And it was right, of course, before COVID. And we're like, we're going to do this. And then once we did that, it opened up so many doors for us that we were like, oh, we can do this. We can travel with Stella. And so since then we went to Morgan's Wonderland and done a few other little things, but we want to encourage fellowship and meet and greets with families, and travel as much as you can. Give yourself and your kids that experience of being able to go to different places. And so one of the ways that we wanted to support families to do this is providing the Cute Connections grant from TCSF. And we have several locations that are already up and running. Or in the process. So Atlanta, Georgia, we have Madison and Karen are working on that location. So if you're close to Atlanta, contact one of them if you haven't already. And then Branson, Missouri, Heather and I are working on that one. And then we have one that's in the process of starting to plan in Columbus, Ohio. So contact Michelle. And then, I mean, if you want to go to Italy, I mean, part of me is like, I mean, I don't live in Italy, but I would very much love to go. Then you can contact Cinzia for that one. I also happened to see this morning that Marianne has also posted that she is looking at getting one going in Chicago as well. So when we talk about these grants, we're hoping to be able to cover some of the costs of the activities that you guys are going to do at those family meetups. So we have a $1,000 budget for each one of these, but depending on how many apply, we might be able to give a little bit more than that. So, the ticket prices to go to an aquarium or a water park or meals that you guys are coming together for, any of those things that we would entertain covering. So if you have an idea, post it in the support group first, see if there's other people around you. You have to have at least 2 SCNAA families for it to be a family meetup. And then once you get the information, apply for that grant. We would love to see more family meetups all over the world. So I want to jump back into the chat. Okay, so Lacey was talking about a wearable seizure monitor. Yep.
Yes.
That is definitely something that we would entertain.
Absolutely.
So
find it, apply for it. And I think that's a great example. Couple things, you're touching on the cute connections, and I think that's amazing. One of the things that we did with Connor, before cute connections existed, but always going to the family gatherings and being one of the very first families at the family gatherings, and that fellowship I think is really important. I think there are things that keep us sometimes from doing that. And some of those things are, I'm worried my child might catch something and then I got to bring that home and deal with it. Right. So there's always that fear, and that is absolutely a legitimate fear. And we have to work through that, whatever's the right decision for a family. And then there's the planning things, like, how am I going to get my child on a plane, and how am I going to get my child to do this or that? And I highly encourage you to reach out to other families and ask questions. I certainly am always a resource. Shoot me a private message if you prefer on Facebook, and just say, hey, how did you do this? And if it was something we did, I can give you my thoughts on it. And I think the other thing, this is the other caveat that I had to get brave in Connor's early years, is you're going to get stared at. And I actually don't think in the majority of cases, they're bad stares. It's not somebody going, oh, why does she have her special needs child here? I think oftentimes it's actually admiration. It just doesn't come out that way. It's, oh, wow, that mom, that dad, they have their child on the beach in this really unique buggy looking thing. Holy smokes, I ought to go over there and pat him on the back. But instead, I'm just going to stare at him.
right.
And I will tell you, grow a thick skin if you can. Let those things go off your shoulder, and go out there and just puff that chest out. And my kid deserves this experience. We want to do this. We're going to be here, and let him, what I used to always say, it used to really bother Sean sometimes. He'd be like, that so-and-so staring. I'd say, let him stare. Let them stare at this wonderfulness that is Connor, and let them, stare at these parents that are trying to do what they can to give them this experience. So I say, let them stare. I hope you guys will all go to these cute connections. I really want to go to Italy too.
Yeah, right. I'm sure Cinzia would have you, and anybody else that wanted to go. And I also so that brings up 2 more things that I wanted to mention as well. So the very last, oh gosh, now I'm getting the days mixed up. I think it's the 10th. Now I don't have the thing in front of me. I'll have to look it up as I'm talking here really quick. But one of the last things we're going to talk about during Meaningful Change series, it is, okay, the 10th, May 10th, is we are going to have several SCNAA caregivers on, and we're going to talk about the tips and tricks of traveling with your SCNAA child. So we're hoping that we can talk about our experiences, things that we did. Krista, I think we're probably going to need to maybe have some extra chats about that too, because I saw your cool flight harness that you had for Connor in one of those pictures. And so we definitely want to provide, you know, a way for you guys to get some ideas, gain some confidence, ask questions. And so that's going to be on May 10th. It's our very last Meaningful Change series presentation that we'll do. And then one more thing, we're definitely have a lot of time before the gathering, but we will be doing the family travel grants again this year. It ended up being such an amazing thing last year. We fully funded 19 families to come to the foundation or to the gathering last year, and we would love to do it again. So don't have the application quite ready for you guys yet, but as we get closer to the gathering in December, which will be in Orlando, Florida, we will have some opportunities for you guys to apply for those grants as well. So these are all really big things that we're all excited about, because these are ways for us to give you guys more joy and more opportunities to really celebrate our lovely, wonderful kids.
Agreed. I have one more plug. And then I can tie it back to the grant, because so we have Nora's very first virtual 5K coming up, and I've already signed up and got my cute little shirt and my medal. I just have to actually go put the distance in now, which the good thing is I'm actually running a half marathon on that day. So I'll get it done. Promise, Nora. But that's coming up. If you haven't signed up for it, if you will, and share it with your family and friends, because virtual 5Ks actually are a lot of fun, because there's no time pressure. There's like, you can do whatever you want, walk it, run it, you know. And one of my favorite activities with Connor, and I actually wrote about this in my running group because I'm the editor. And I wrote about my running experience with Connor. Like, he'd actually become my running partner. He was my most reliable running partner. And if I'd promised him that day that I was taking him out, I would feel guilty if oh, I'm too tired, or the pollen's bothering me today. He was really good at keeping me committed to that. And so I kind of almost think, I suspect, I could be wrong, but I suspect that there will be a second annual virtual 5K next year. And I'm hoping by that point in time, many of you will have applied for your grant for your Wyke, your Rover, your Bob, your whatever. And then you'll all be pushing your kids in that.
Yes, absolutely. And I've also seen a lot of 8A families that are getting their community involved with the virtual 5K, or their families and friends, and they're all meeting at certain tracks or pavilions to do the walk together. So I thought that was just a great way to spread awareness and get other people involved outside of our community. Oh, good. Danielle put the plug there for our virtual 5K. So we have it in the chat for you guys to click on and get registered today. I still need to register myself. So I know.
You better.
I know. So I need to do that. My whole family's like, oh, we still need to do that. So, but yeah, so this is a good reminder for myself as well, not to forget. Is there a deadline on that, Danielle? I should probably ask that. I don't think so. I think you can sign up to the day, but I guess in order for you to get all of your stuff before that day, you'll probably want to sign up by a certain day. So
yeah, go ahead and do it now if you want your shirt and your medal. I think it's really cool, and it makes for cool pictures afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say as quickly as possible. So I should probably make myself a note here to go ahead and do that today. Awesome. Well, guys, this has been amazing. I know that Krista and I have been looking forward to this day for weeks now, to be able to share this amazing news with you guys, and hope that we just get bombarded with tons of applications. And I also want to mention too, I know we don't talk about our board of directors a whole lot, but I had a board meeting on Monday night, and they are so excited about the new programming that we are doing at the Acute Syndrome Foundation, and are so encouraging to think about the families and what can we do to help, what can we do to spread joy and maybe just make your life a little bit easier. So we're all excited about this from the ground up, and we're hoping that you guys all apply. If you have any questions, feel free to private message me on Facebook, send me an email, whatever is easiest for you. And, Krista, I have your Acute Syndrome email up here, but I know you're probably more than welcome to entertain some Facebook messages or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Too.
Yeah. Whatever's easiest, contact me and I will definitely get back to you.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Well, guys, we are coming up on, actually we're at 12 o'clock my time, 1 o'clock most everybody else. I feel like I have to live in Eastern time now, but it's been an absolute joy to see all of you and to spread our amazing news. So we will see you next week. So make sure that you plan to come next Wednesday. We will be talking with our friends with Praxis. And I'm really excited to have some program updates from them, but then also some fireside chat conversations with some leaders at Praxis. So make sure you're showing up for that and the rest of Meaningful Change series. And again, a huge thank you to our sponsors, Praxis and Neurocrine, so we can bring this educational programming to you guys. All right. Well, Krista, we did it. Yay.
We did it in an hour. That's the amazing thing.
I've been keeping an eye on time because I know I can talk, and I'm pretty excited that we got in just under our 1 hour time. So,
and I'll tell you what, I'm telling you, you guys have all been so impactful to upbringing Connor. Like, we could always rely on each other and ask questions, and this is going on and this medication and just all of that community that comes from it. But now that we have to be parents that go through the grieving process, you guys have equally been there for us. And I needed this today to see some of these wonderful faces. And Tammy, thank you so much for bringing our sweet boy, because I needed that.
Yes. All right. Well, we will see you all next week then. Bye.